Hey everybody, I'm excited to have Brian Clark with me today from Charlotte Windustrial. He's the focus, and they are the focus of our business spotlight interview today. My name is Brent Thompson with Action Coach Lake Norman. We're your training, education, and business coaching firm here in the Lake Norman area. So, Brian, get us started, man. Tell us a little bit about you and about your business and what all you guys do and what you offer to the community.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
So we're Charlotte Industrial. We're suppliers of industrial materials like pipe fittings, flanges, and valves into industrial applications that include, power plants, other factories, food and beverage, including breweries. And we sell throughout the Carolinas and actually coast to coast, based right here in Charlotte.
Great, great. All right. So I'm going to ask you to take yourself back a little bit,
Yeah.
back to square one when you first started. If you
Yeah.
were to do this all over again, what are some things or maybe one major thing that you would do differently?
I think the biggest thing is you along the way you learn what you didn't know, right? And I think that sometimes that lack of experience and knowledge means that you get caught in this indecision loop where it's, oh, I think I should do this or I don't think I should do this. And I think that what I would do differently is I would just embrace that discomfort and move quicker. We grew over those first 3, 4, 5 years, but as I look back, I could have easily brought on somebody quicker, and I was really hesitant to do so. Like, oh, can we afford this person? And as long as it's a good hire, they would have paid for themselves. And so if I had to do over again, I would have forced myself to move faster than I did.
Right. No, that's a great learning or a great thing there. So I'm going to piggyback on that just a touch as well.
Yeah.
So maybe give the listeners a highlight of some of your biggest learnings as an owner, or maybe it has to do with being an employer as well, since you started your business.
Yeah. I think that when I started, it was we were a one person operation, and that was a bit unusual in our industry because it's, we're actually shipping physical goods and we're selling and there's some administrative part. So it was a little chaotic for the first 12 to 15 months with me attempting to get things off the ground. And I think what I learned is that as we grew, I needed to change, and we would get to these plateaus where I was still treating us like a one person location, holding on to too much, even though I had started to hire a few people. And I was the pinch point, if you will, where I had to change. I had to get comfortable with delegating and, eventually setting up systems and so forth. When we're all brand new, it's we just got to sell to stay alive. And you can do that. But I think that what I've learned is that over the 11 years we've been open, there's been 3 or 4 occurrences where I needed to change, right? And hey, why are we not growing? Why have we plateaued? And in almost every case, it started with me of, hey, I need to grow for us to grow.
Right. Oh no, that's great. Self-development gets put on the
Yep.
back burner sometimes. So that's a great lesson to learn for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody has these conceptions of owning your own business, right? I should
Yep.
say misconceptions probably of owning
Yeah.
your own business. What are some misconceptions that maybe you've had come your way about owning a business, and how have you addressed those things?
Well, I think that it's all fantastic, right? We live in this culture where somebody sees the really cool thing and on a Instagram clip of a highlight of, oh, I got to play golf at a beautiful golf course, or entertain a customer at this prestigious event or something like that. And there is some of that, but there's a long path to get there, right? And there's a lot of, if you will, dark days and a lot of long hours. And I think that our culture that just wants to focus on, oh man, look at how great that must be, kind of misses out on that whole process of the hard work and the no's and the rejections, and that's really what owning a business is about, is you're going to get knocked down and getting back up and finding a way to make stuff happen. And I don't think that's, I think most people from the outside don't perceive that the work as much as, oh, that must be cool that you got to play golf at wherever, right? And so if there was one thing I could change, it would be to highlight some of that stuff, some of the work that goes in.
Right. Yeah, people just see the end result sometimes. They don't see the first year where we're going and going and going and going, and
Yeah,
the sacrifices that get made as well along
yeah,
the way. So
yes.
kind of what you're saying about the path and the journey, you've had some growth. So what do you attribute your growth to?
So a big part of it is our model. You know, we're part of Winsupply, which is a bigger company. They're financial partners with us, so they provide financial backing and a lot of back office support to us, and they give us a lot of the tools where we can focus on the customer facing activities, and they do a lot of the back office stuff, taxes and accounting and so forth. Um, we also have internally we have boards, and that allows us to kind of get a outside perspective, because we all tend to get tunnel vision when we're in the day to day. Sometimes we get a little off track, and we need somebody to say, hey, I know you're working like crazy, but I think you might be misaligned a little bit. Let's talk about the big picture and make sure that you're on the right path. And so I would encourage, even companies that don't have, let's say that support, do
Mhm.
something like find a coach or an informal board, some people you can bounce some stuff off of, particularly that are willing to give you the hard truths that you don't, sometimes ruffle your feathers a little to hear it at first. I think that helps you keep you on the right path.
Yes, for sure, absolutely. Outside perspective is always helpful for
Yeah.
sure. All right, so work-life balance, right? We hear that term often. As a business owner, that may be one of the top challenges, if not the top challenge, to running a business and owning a business. So what are some things that you do to at least attempt to have work-life balance in your job with the demands of the business being as they are?
Yeah. So I guess before we get into the balance, I think it's important to maybe understand that at first there might not be balance, right? It is difficult. It is long hours to get things up and going, and create some momentum. And that's just the reality, right? For most locations, for most companies rather. So I think some of it is just embrace it and say this isn't going to be forever, but for a year or 18 months or 2 years or whatever that might be, or sometimes it's just seasons of, hey, we
Mhm.
booked a big project, or I lost a key employee for
Right.
3 months or 6 months. I'm gonna be working extra hours. But the biggest thing for me was just becoming a better manager, building systems, hiring people, and getting comfortable with delegating.
Mhm.
When I started doing that stuff, it turned the corner. I wanted to hold on to stuff because I knew that I would do a better job, right? And I would remember how, man, it took me 3 years to like really get on board with this customer. I don't want to screw it up. And I had to just get comfortable that, okay, this younger person is going to make a few mistakes because I did when I was young too. But we can put some guardrails in place where nothing's catastrophic, and they become a learning lesson.
Mhm.
And so for me, that's when things started to take off, where I could get home at a reasonable time, and I wasn't just working myself to the bone. But that took a while, quite frankly, to realize that. But yeah, hiring good people, building systems, to be able to take some stuff off my plate.
Okay, good. So that leads into, you mentioned delegating, you mentioned hiring some good people. So
Yep.
as far as being the employer hat of your business, what do
Yeah.
you look for when you're hiring? Like some traits or characteristics? That's kind of the A part of the question. Like, what are you looking for in an employee? And then the other side of that is, what do you do to foster just a healthy, positive culture in your company?
Yeah. So in terms of what we look for, it's less about the resume and, hey, where have you worked? We can teach the right person our product and our systems. But the wrong person ends up becoming, a cancer.
Mhm.
So, we want to foster the correct culture. And that's somewhat hard to define, but we look for people who maybe have overcome some adversity. So I know that they have some grit. That's one of the things, because I know when times get tough, I want somebody that's going to put their head down and work through it, and not just say, "Hey, I'm going home because I had a bad day." And certainly a certain level of people skills. I mean, we're selling, even our drivers and our warehouse folks interact with our customers on a regular basis. They don't necessarily have to be a social butterfly, but they've got to be able to have a conversation and be respectful to customers and vendors who they're going to interact with. So umbrella culture, but there's a lot of kind of nuance to that, and it's somewhat tough to define. Um, what was the other part of the question?
Well, it's more, what are you looking for in an employee, and then
Yep.
fostering culture. What do you do to foster a positive
Oh,
culture?
yeah. And so from there, then once we get them on board, it's our job to fulfill, our end of the bargain, right? Which means we're prepared for their first day. We've got a training system where over the first several weeks, they have certain checklists that they're gonna, based on their role, certain skills they're gonna learn. They're gonna sit with different people. There's going to be regular check-ins, particularly over that first 90 days to see how they're doing, seeing if we miss something. And then it just becomes, regular communication with twice a year reviews and kind of just a regular check-in to make sure that they're on the right path. And know that if something's not right, whether it's with them or with us, that there's an open line of communication that we can talk about it.
Very good. Very good. All right, we're going to start wrapping this up with a couple more things. So let's put a bow on it as far as all the advice and the learnings and things you would do different for other business owners out there they're ready to make the leap into a business, or maybe they're already owning the business and they're just looking to grow. What are some words of advice from your experience that you would give those folks?
I think it's take the leap. It is. I know that there's a lot of folks who will try to analyze something to death, and one of the most difficult things about owning a business is that there's a lot of stuff you just don't know, right? You might have a okay idea of like, hey, I think this is how things are going to go, but it's not something you can learn from a book, right? A lot of it is just kind of getting in there and mixing it up and making good decisions, and that certainly puts people in an uncomfortable place. But that's kind of the job. So for those that are planning and analyzing, there certainly is a place for that, right? It is good to have some sense of a plan, but the reality is that most companies are going to pivot multiple times in that first year or two from what their initial plan would be. So don't let an imperfect plan hold you back from getting started. Get started in some way, shape, or form, and you should be able to figure out, the rest as you go.
Oh, you nailed that. Yeah, that's good. All right. Last thing, what's the best way for someone to find you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say on LinkedIn, find me at Brian Clark, as part of Charlotte Industrial, and certainly follow, Charlotte Industrial's social media. I think we've got a pretty good social media presence out there that gives a good picture of who we are as a company and our people.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, for being with us today, being part of this community. And we definitely wish you continued success in your future.
Great. Thank you for having me.
You got it, buddy. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.